Caldwell, West Caldwell Board of Education. My name is Donna Ward, and I'll be your moderator tonight. The League, I hope many of you know, is a non-partisan organization. We never support or oppose political parties or candidates. If you can believe this, we've been in existence over 100 years and are committed to providing fact-based information to help voters make their own decisions. We're partnering with the League tonight with the Progress newspaper, and I thank Kathy Shipp and her staff, the editor of the Progress, for inviting us to participate. We encourage everyone to go to vote411.org, which is a one-stop shop for nonpartisan information on all aspects of voting in New Jersey, with information about all candidates up and down the ballot. This forum tonight will be recorded and will be available on our League website and on our YouTube channel. We encourage the sharing of the League's recording of this event in its entirety, but don't allow editing or making public any excerpts from the recording, which the candidates know about that. The League name, logo, event recording, or any materials from the event can't be used in a way that could lead a viewer or a reader to infer League support or opposition to a candidacy. So we have strict nonpartisan policy. Kathy, do you want to say anything?
I just want to welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. If you have any questions during the forum, we have cards, we have pencils. I'll leave some here. I mean, we're pretty informal, so just come and grab them and write your question down and then get it to Donna so she could insert it into the lineup, because we want what y'all are interested in to be posed, as well as questions we did get from people in advance. I think that's it, unless anybody has questions for us.
Okay. We have great. Yeah.
Translator.
Early voter. I love it. We have 5 candidates for 2 seats with 3-year terms on the West Caldwell Board of Education that will be decided in November. The candidates are Dan Cipoletti, Paula Getty, John King, Danielle Mack, and Terry DiMartini. Okay. As Kathy said, questions have been submitted in advance from the public, and we reviewed them. But you can also submit questions if we can get to. Our format is each candidate will be able to give a 1.5-minute opening and closing statement. We'll have a question and answer session. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer, and we'll also allow the candidates to give a 30-second rebuttal if they want to after each candidate has answered. The timer will hold up a 30-second warning card when your time is getting up, and when your time is up, then you'll see the stop card, and that's when I'm going to have to start closing you down. Okay, we're ready to begin. You're going to be seeing my back now for the rest of the night because I'll be sitting there. Good luck, candidates. We're going to start alphabetically with our opening statements. So.
Sure. First off, I'd like to welcome Ms. DiMartini, Ms. Mack, Mr. King, and of course my running mate, Paula Getty, to this evening's debate. I'd also like to thank the Progress and the Women's League for organizing this event. And lastly, thanks to the West Caldwell Library, where I volunteered for many years as a trustee, for hosting us this evening. Experience matters. We're coming out of a very interesting and challenging time for school districts, stemming largely from the pandemic, but also from politically generated sentiments. Now we have new challenges and opportunities. Some are more macro than others, such as state mandates and inflation cost drivers, and others more community-based, such as contract negotiations and bond referendums. We also have opportunities and challenges related to collaborating with our local town councils and mayors and other organizations related to new initiatives and maintenance of existing contracts. So there will be challenges and opportunities where experience, relationships, and a balanced view will help us to propel forward. Paula and I have that experience. Knowledge and relationships have served us. We have served on the Board of Education for a combined 15 plus years, many of which as president and vice president. This is not a time for change within our district. It is a time for stability and growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cipoletti. Ms. Getty.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening and to have the opportunity to participate in this debate with my running mate, Dan Cipoletti, with Mr. King, with Ms. DiMartini, and Ms. Mack. Thank you to the Progress and to the Women's League of Voters for organizing the event, and to the West Caldwell Library for hosting us this evening. As many of you know, I previously served on the Board of Education for 6 years as a board member, vice president, and president. During that tenure, we maintained a tight budget, implemented and updated security and safety measures, upgraded technology, brought about renovations to CPAC and the athletic field, all the while providing a quality education for our students. So it was most gratifying to be chosen to complete the unexpired term of Marie Land Frank, and to be able to step back in with the experience and knowledge necessary to hit the ground running. Honestly, the hardest part for me was relearning in some instances the acronyms. I knew STEM, I wasn't sure about STEAM though, so it took a minute to find them. But Dan and I are here tonight to talk about the future and the challenges confronting the district. The pandemic dramatically affected our students, our teachers, and the educational system as a whole. We are working to quantify the educational, social, and emotional learning loss and provide the necessary support for students to overcome those deficits. At the same time, working to provide teachers and administrators with the necessary tools to overcome the challenges that they face in the classroom on a daily basis. We've had some rocky times, but hopefully with listening and collaboration, things are improving.
Thank you, Ms. Getty.
Thank you.
Mr. King.
Yes, I'd like to thank the Women's League and the Progress and everybody for hosting this. It gives us an opportunity to tell everybody what we're about. And after the meeting, after the session, I'm glad that it's being taped, because we need more people to hear what's going on from my perspective. And for everybody that came, it's very good. It shows you have interest in the community. But anyway, I've lived in town. My name is John King. I've lived in town since 1989. My wife is a lifelong resident, Teresa King. Her maiden name was O'Neill. I have 5 children. They're all completely through the school system now. They all went to Washington, they all went to Grover Cleveland, and they all went to James Caldwell. I have a significant banking and finance experience. I've worked in banking since the mid-'80s. I've been with my current bank since 1996. Although my LinkedIn account says I've only been there 5 years, the banks merged. I went through 3 mergers, and I must be doing something right. But people are congratulating me on my work anniversary just this week. It's been 5 years since the merger. That's what the anniversary is. It's not that. Let me see. I have 26 years of military service. I started as a young man, and I retired from that a long time ago, like 2006 or 7. But I still support what the military is about, and I was glad I did it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Mack.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the League and to the Progress. My name is Danielle Mack. I am a West Caldwell resident. I live in West Caldwell with my husband, Joel, who's here tonight to support, and our 2 children, Andrew and Christopher. Andrew is a 2nd grader at Jefferson Elementary School, and Christopher is a 7-year-old who attends an out-of-district placement for students with autism. I come here tonight seeking a position on the Board of Education in November. I come with exceptional expertise in education. I am a 20-year experienced teacher for the Summit Public School District. I served as a special education teacher for 18 years in the classroom, and then most recently transitioned to a case manager position, a case manager learning consultant position in which I'm responsible or I oversee about 40 families who have students with special needs. I'm testing students, I'm evaluating them, I'm writing reports. Again, a lot of communication between home and school, and really just ensuring that the students are getting the education that they need and they're making progress towards their goals. On a personal note, I am native to the area, so I grew up in West Caldwell. I graduated from James Caldwell High School in 1998. My husband and I spent some time in Washington, D.C. before we realized that we really just wanted to come back to the area because it's a great community and we would like to raise our family in West Caldwell.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for those opening statements. Let's move
One
on.
more.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
You were supposed to go before.
I'm playing usher.
That's all right, don't worry.
Sorry, please, Ms. DiMartini.
Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you to the League, the Library, and the Progress for hosting this forum. My name is Terry DiMartini, and I reside in West Caldwell with my husband, Steve Greenlee, and our 3 children, Emily, who is a 7th grader at the middle school, and our 2 sons, Augie and Donovan, who attend Washington School and are in 5th and 1st grade. I hold a dual master's degree in social work and early childhood development, general and special ed from Columbia University and Bank Street College. I have worked the last 20 years as a social worker with my field being in schools, in mental health awareness and also care, in youth development, in foster care and family homeless services. Throughout my career, I've held various leadership roles. I've been responsible for program development, management, and budgeting. And a common theme in my career has been I've been an advocate focused on bringing groups of people together for a common good. Volunteerism has always been a part of my life. I served on the board of First Presbyterian Church Nursery School. I was also a volunteer coach for Girls on the Run. And then I transitioned that into a full-time job position. I am now the Essex County Director and Director of Community Relations. I currently am very active in our school district. I was the HSA co-president at Washington School. I currently volunteer on the middle school HSA. I am a district volunteer on the Equity Planning Committee, and I'm really excited to tell you more about me tonight.
Thank you. Okay, now we're ready for the first questions. A key issue facing New Jersey schools today is the new health and PE curriculum. Is the district handling the new health PE curriculum correctly? Would you change the process? If so, how? Let's start with Ms. Getty.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe they're handling the process the way it needs to be handled. We're waiting on the proposed curriculum to come out. It's going to be out there for all parents to take a look at it and to review it. We're also providing a form that they can complete to provide input, and we would hope that everybody does. We want to hear from you. We want to know what your concerns are. At the same time, we also need you to understand that it's a mandate that's come down from the Department of Education. And whether we agree with it or not, it's something that we do have to implement. So I would ask you to keep that all in the back of your mind.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing a survey to get parent input. I've seen some of the mandates and what, I understand there's a mandate for it from the state, but it's what the individual board and the district, and in the case of our district is that central administration, where they want to take it. There's a way of, first of all, we have to have the survey. If someone wants to, a huge majority of people want to go gung-ho for that, then we have to do it, regardless of my personal opinion. I'm a little conservative, I don't think. I would just do the minimum amount to meet the requirement, and that's it. But I'm not gonna mandate it. Even though I'm conservative, I would never mandate that for the people. I want a survey of all the residents. And if an overwhelming majority, or a majority of the residents wants to go gung-ho with the program, then we'll do it. That's how I would handle it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mack.
I actually don't think that the curriculum has been rolled out appropriately. We had a first draft come out, I believe it was in August, don't quote me on that though, but the first initial draft that came out contained videos that were very inappropriate. And the videos were posted without without review, I guess, from the administration. So that was disappointing. I think we're beyond deadlines. It's kind of gray. There hasn't really been a lot of communication. I think, I don't know if we're out of compliance, but at this point in time, I feel that the community deserves to be able to look at the curriculum and see what our children are going to be learning soon. We can't unfortunately comment on the specifics because we don't have it in front of us. So I think we could have done a better job.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini.
Yes. We knew this question was going to come up tonight, and there is disappointment that the district is not reviewing or releasing the next draft of the curriculum until Friday, which I think is a disservice to the candidates and also to everyone here, because we can't comment on what's actually in there right now. I was also very disappointed that the district gave out an initial draft without reviewing it, and they admitted that they did not review it. And we were able to see several of the videos that were on there, and some of them were not age appropriate and just not appropriate in general for a health curriculum. My hope is that as a district, we're going to have careful and deliberate conversations about how this needs to be rolled out and implemented, and that we're going to ensure that these are age appropriate lessons.
Thank you. Mr. Cipollette.
So I think your question was, do we support the rollout? The rollout has not yet happened. As Ms. DiMartini mentioned, the community will see what that is on Friday. And then the schedule, which has been, I think, fairly clearly articulated by the superintendent, was the community will have that for 2 weeks. There will be meetings at each school, which is open to the community, as well as obviously the parents and everybody to come and comment. Then the committee within the school will review it, and then it'll finally be brought up to the board for a vote somewhere in December. So the curriculum, I think, is open for review and comment by parents, by the community. I'm not sure how much more the district, quite honestly, can do to open it up. So do I think it's being done appropriately? Yes, I do.
Okay. Any rebuttals? Yes, Ms. DiMartini.
I believe that the superintendent stated that the community would not have input on the curriculum, that it was for parents only, and that those meetings were open only to parents of that school community.
He actually stated it would be on the website for everybody to see on Friday.
But not for input.
One at a time. Yes,
But
Ms.
the,
Getty.
but the input could certainly come to the board meetings, at the board meetings. You're not limited to just that survey. You could certainly come to the board meetings and present your objections. I know we've had several come already, and we welcome that. Everybody deserves respect to be heard.
Good, thank you. Moving on. Oh,
I
sorry, Mr.
have
King,
a-
yes, go ahead.
People have to understand that administration in the district is very biased. And they've done this to me. I'm a 3-term board member. They've done this to me a couple of times while I was in there. It was very upsetting to me. They canceled Immigration Day without even telling the board. And I think one person complained about it,
I think we're talking about
many people.
the question. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what we're rebutting.
All right, well, we'll wait till another question to work it in.
Okay, good. Should parents be allowed to opt their children out of the health PE curriculum? Why or why not? Should they also be allowed to opt their children out of other subjects such as world or US history or government? Why or why not? We'll start with Mr. King.
Well, I think that the state says that there's an opt-out provision. So as long as that, they should definitely be allowed to opt out. So as far as the other courses, no, I don't think we want to expand it to just cherry pick anything you don't want to do. But in this particular case, this is a very sensitive issue. A lot of parents are uncomfortable with it not being age-appropriate material. And I respect that. But again, I would take more input from the community. The problem with the district right now is that they don't take a lot of input. It seems to be the superintendent, assistant superintendent, curriculum director, they're rogue. They go out on their own and they do these things without listening to the teachers or the parents or anybody else for that matter. And that's why I'm running. People have asked me to run to try and put a stop to it.
Good, thank you. Ms. Mack?
I do believe that parents should be given the option to opt their students out of the curriculum. As Mr. King said, it is, a sensitive topic, and some families feel that it's, those conversations are better had in the home, and I respect that. There was a comment that was made at a board meeting recently, and the gentleman suggested an opt-in option, which I think was very interesting. And although I think of logistically, I would like to explore that more. I think that that's also an option that we should explore as well. As far as the other subjects, personally, I don't think that students should be opted out of, core content subjects where we're, learning about our history as a country.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini?
Yes. Yes, I do agree that they're with the opt-out option for families, especially given that this has been a very polarizing topic for many folks. And it's important that we do give people the opportunity to decide what they feel is appropriate or not, given what the curriculum may or may not look like. I think that that's really important. I think as we look at other subjects, I would hope that we would not offer that opportunity, as there's many requirements that children have in terms of graduating. I do think that a lot of this really comes down to, though, trust in the district and trust in the people who are, making decisions for our children.
Thank you. Mr. Cipollette?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. I think, and there will be an opt-out provision for this subject matter. But the core classes, the answer should be no. You shouldn't be able to opt out of math or opt out of English or opt out of history or et cetera, whatever that might be. But again, there will be, and we have discussed, and it's already been stated that there will be an opt-out provision for the PE piece.
Thank you. Ms. Getty?
I totally agree that there should be an opt-out. There are portions of the curriculum that if families are uncomfortable with, they should have the ability to opt out and to make that decision as a family when the timing is appropriate to teach their children whatever that content piece is. In terms of opting out for the core curriculum, no. I totally disagree with having that ability to opt out. I think it's to all our benefit to learn about history and world cultures and everything that goes with it. And I just wondered if I made a comment about John and his comment about the teachers. And I do think things are improving. I do think we're listening and trying to work collaboratively with them so that we're all working toward what's best for our students and our children.
Thank you. I've heard a lot of agreement. Any rebuttals? Okay. Moving on then. Does the district do enough to keep students and staff safe physically? What changes do you favor, if any, and why? And we'll start off with Ms. Mack.
I think safety should be the number one priority of our school districts. As far as keeping the children safe, I know we're mandated to run certain drills every month, and I believe that we are in compliance with that, which is important. All of our students need to feel safe, right? That's I think one of our number one goals. And are we doing enough to make them feel safe? I mean, I know that there was a survey that was recently put out, and it seemed that students do feel safe in the community, in the school community itself. From a special ed perspective, because that's my expertise, I know that in some cases, there might be special education students that have behavioral challenges. I think in our district, we're starting to raise awareness to those challenges, and I think we really need to pour some of our resources into supporting the school behaviorists so that those children with the behavioral issues or the mental health issues really get the support that they need.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini.
Yes. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure.
Sorry.
Does the district do enough to keep students and staff safe physically? What changes do you favor, if any?
Yes.
And why?
I go to a lot of schools in Essex County as a part of my job, and I do see a lot of stronger initiatives in other districts that I would hope that we can start to implement. Just for example, in many schools I go in, my ID is run, and a printout of my ID is given to me and I wear it as a badge around the building. In some of our schools, it's not like that, and I don't want to comment too much because this is going to be videoed, and I wouldn't want to say where I think we're weak on certain things, but I do think that we can do better. One thing I was pleased to see this last year was that we do get notifications when our children do drills, which was something that since my daughter was in kindergarten in 2015, I would write the principals and superintendent and ask for that notification. I think it's important that parents support what is being done at schools to keep our children safe, in the drills, for example, and also be aware of what kind of toll that can have on our children and our teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Cipollette.
I agree with what Ms. Mack said. Safety should be a number one priority or a top priority. I think that was evident in, quite honestly, what the board voted to approve this past Monday, where we approved close to $1 million in additional security and technology measures. So the board, quite honestly, continues to review and look at technology and safety and security on a continuous basis. And I can guarantee that the board that sits here today, or on the board today, is very, very adamant to support and make sure we have a safe environment for all our children.
Thank you. Ms. Getty.
I agree with everything that's been said. We just, in fact, did approve almost $1 million on Monday night for updated security and technology, and the technology that goes with that security. So yes, it is first and foremost on our minds all the time. I wouldn't ever want to see anything happen to any of our kids. So whatever we can do to make them feel safe, whether it's working on inclusivity and cultural inclusivity, anything that we can do to provide a safe environment for them. I think the board as it currently exists, and I'm sure as it's going to exist, would be all for that.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Yes, I was on the board after Sandy Hook. And at that time, we moved with a referendum to harden the schools. So a lot of the work on security has been done from that perspective. As far as moving forward, I'm open to what the candidates were talking about. I'd have to look at it more closely. But we went forward with the referendum. It's a mixed bag. I don't like the fact that the high school's not that open of a campus. It never was. It's a hometown feel and the safety of the town. But you do what you have to do. Unfortunately, we're not living in those times.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? I think a lot of agreement on this one too. There was a question that came in from the audience, so I'm going to take because I think it fits with this topic now. Do you believe the issue with swastikas in the middle school this spring was handled appropriately? How would you have handled it differently? And we'll start with Ms. DiMartini.
So let me just first say, as somebody with a child in the middle school, I do believe that the intentions of the school staff there are always in the best interest of the children, and it's very easy to sort of Monday morning quarterback how something was handled. But no, I don't believe that it was handled appropriately in the messaging that went out to the families. Number one, it should have gone out to the entire community to be aware of that. Earlier in the year, we had a similar situation where homophobic comments were written in a girl's bathroom, and that was something only given to 6th grade female students, so families. So I do think that we need to learn from these mistakes that we make along the way. I think that we have to do a better job at understanding like what racism looks like and how it is in our community, and do better to address it and not be nervous or scared to lean into those really hard conversations and say we're not perfect and we can do better.
Thank you. Mr. Cipollette.
The answer is no. It was not handled appropriately. Initially, the communications were terrible, and quite honestly, they were, to some degree, probably watered down. Once the board heard about it and found out about it, I think that was rectified by the intervention from the superintendent, and I believe from that point on, the whole situation was handled much, much better. But to the point of we should not tolerate that behavior, homophobic behavior, or anything along that in our district, or our community, quite honestly. So I think it was not handled well, but it ended up in a better spot.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Getty?
Dan, Ms. DiMartini, and they're absolutely correct. It wasn't handled well. It could have been done much better. The message that initially went out was not good. I think the other piece of all of this is that we as a community need to do better with inclusivity, with cultural awareness. And I'm hoping that as we go forward, that there's going to be more training, more guidance, if you will, from our ministerium, our leaders, so that we don't have that kind of a situation that occurs within the town and our schools going forward.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Well, I have heard about this incident, and I did hear some comments with the communication issue, and it wasn't elevated in a timely manner, and it wasn't handled correctly. That's what I have heard. I don't pretend to be an expert on exactly what happened and when it happened, but I am for the proper messaging and elevating these type of things for the sake of the community.
Ms. Mack?
And I'm in agreement with, everything that was just stated. It wasn't handled appropriately. If our goal, again, is to keep the children and the teachers safe and feeling valued, that unfortunately wasn't the case in these circumstances. So I felt, I heard a lot of the families who attended the board meeting after come forward and express their disappointment and anger. And I'm glad they did, because I feel like the board and the superintendent needed to hear that.
Okay. I hear a lot of agreement too, so any rebuttals? All right. If elected or re-elected, what would you do to attract and retain teachers, principals, and other staff members in light of the high number of recent retirements and resignations? We'll start with Mr. Cipoletti.
Sure. First off, there is a high level of resignations and movement. That being said, it's across the state and quite honestly across the country. So unfortunately, teachers today and administrators, quite honestly, have an extremely tough job, right? And they've always had a tough job. But it's kind of gotten worse coming out of the pandemic. Unfortunately, some kids did fairly well in the at-home learning, and some, or probably more than did well, did not. And besides the educational aspect, there's an emotional aspect. So it's a tough job, right? So what we need to do is ensure that we're supporting the teachers and making sure that they have the resources that are required of them. And that's, as well as make sure we have the right counseling and quite honestly in our school district to help with the emotional aspects. Because to some degree, I personally feel the emotional detriment from the pandemic is worse than the educational detriment. So.
Thank you. Ms. Getty?
So I don't know if anybody saw the recent article in the paper about the 3 districts that are right around us that have higher pay scales, and that's part of what contributes to being able to keep teachers and maintain them and provide them the support that we need. I think we as a board need to start to take a look at that payment schedule, especially for our teachers. I know I personally get really, really upset when I look at sports figures that are making millions of dollars and we can't find money for our educators. It just annoys me to no end. So that's something that I'm hoping going forward that the board will take a close look at so that we at least become competitive with the Milburns, with the Livingstons, with the West Essexes in the area. The other piece has to do with supporting our teachers. They are our most valuable resource, no matter how you look at it. And they're the ones that are on the front lines with our children every day. And I would hope that we will put in place anything that we can to support them and assist them with whatever they need to do for our kids.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Well, I think the issue, you know, I support they should be paid evenly. But from what I hear from the teachers and certain other people involved with the schools, that it's not really a pay issue. The issue is morale is terrible. They don't like the new superintendent. They don't like the assistant superintendent. They don't like the curriculum director and the coaches. This has been going on for a while. These people need to be reined in. And that's why I'm running. You know, I know we can't, one's tenured and one has a 5-year contract, but they have to change, and that's where it starts. We cannot have all this turnover and low morale in the school district, not in this town. This is a great area, and I'm not gonna let it happen. That's the only reason, that's, you know, I don't, to run, we don't get paid for this. I'm doing it for the flag, the town flag, the Chiefs flag.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
I agree that the morale is very low, and speaking with teachers, you know, especially over the past few months, it seems that they're not feeling very valued by our district. And as Ms. Getty said, they are on the front lines. They are, you know, they are right alongside our students as, you know, one of the most important key factors in our schools. You know, as far as giving them a voice, I think that's really important. I think that a lot of teachers are feeling like they don't have a seat at the table, or they're not able to give and provide feedback. They're just being told to do. And that's exhausting and frustrating because they truly are our experts, and we have to lean on them for direction and guidance, you know, when it comes to educating our students. And if they're not feeling that way, then, you know, it's probably difficult to, you know, to want to come to work every day. And that also being said too, I mean, I sat in a Board of Education meeting where our school was called a failing district by our leadership. I mean, that really doesn't sit well, or didn't sit well with me. And I could imagine from the teacher's perspective, they were feeling not so great either.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini?
Yes, I really believe that we need to lean in to listen more to our teachers. As Danielle said, you know, they are our experts. And I think that instead of having people leave, we need to really focus on what makes you stay here, what makes you not want to maybe go someplace else, and what can we do to keep you here. Those are conversations that I really think should be a part of our culture in order to keep our really qualified staff. I also think that that will then help us attract other new teachers who may want to come to our district. Of course, pay obviously is very important. And I really think that we have a lot of family support for our teachers. I know last year for one of my children's teachers, you know, the families rallied around to provide, like, you know, tokens of appreciation each week because we didn't feel like the teachers were necessarily getting it from the administration. And I think it's really important that our teachers know that we are a good school district because of them and the care and the dedication they put in.
Thank you. Any areas of rebuttal?
If I could just comment, I do think morale is low, hopefully not as low as it was. When I went on in January, one of the things that was really important was that we support our teachers and that we listen to them, that we actually listen to them. Make sure that they're at the table. I know that there are still some concerns that John's expressed. I do think it is getting better. Are we there yet? No, we've had some rocky patches. But hopefully we can continue to work to get it where it needs to be.
Good. Okay. Moving on. What should the district do to help students who lost ground educationally during the pandemic? Ms. Getty?
So I think we've already started work on that. We've brought in behavioralists, psychologists, counselors to provide the support that the kids are needing. We're working on professional development for the teachers to give them more support in terms of the programming and curriculum that they're implementing. So I think we're we're working on all of that to make sure that the kids are doing better. We're working on plans to make sure that we're culturally inclusive and that there's equity throughout. They're not easy things to put together, and it takes time and collaboration to do it, and we're working on it. We just had a meeting, in fact, that we were all part of. So that's first and foremost what I think we're working on. I think as we settle into some normalcy now, I'm hoping that that will improve. I'm hoping that morale will get better, because it was really difficult during those times. If you talk to teachers about how bad it was during the pandemic, it was really difficult for them. So hopefully that's improving.
Good, thank you. Mr. King?
Well, I think that with regards to helping the students, I think the whole school environment is critical. I think when the environment is adversarial between the central administration and everybody else, your morale is low, the whole feel to the whole school would be lower, and that's not gonna help the students. We need to solve this.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
So I think that there are two issues or areas to address when I think about the COVID pandemic. The first is social emotional learning, and I do feel like there are things that are in place to address that area. We have guidance counselors at every building. I know that there's professional development going on. I think that maybe we even need to be more specific in maybe workshops or opportunities for the children to be exposed to maybe social skills or problem solving. As far as the academics, I mean, that was a big concern too. Again, I think we're rolling out some ideas like the SMART program that at the elementary level that in theory seems great because we're trying to close the gap, the achievement gap that the students are facing after COVID. But the program's being offered at either 7:55 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's not really being mindful or considerate of the students who are in school all day and at 3 o'clock might need a break, or in the morning it's just difficult to get out the door for 7:55.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cipollette?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the emotional and educational deficits created are a problem for all of us. They're a problem for the board, they're a problem for the teachers, they're a problem for the parents, but most importantly, they're a problem for the students. Ms. Mack referenced guidance counselors in each building, right? That's new this year. We brought a guidance counselor into each building where prior to this, they were shared. For a psychologist for each building. The professional development that's offered now for the teachers to try to help, hopefully will help. But again, it's probably one of the toughest jobs, quite honestly, out there today. So we have to continue to figure out ways to support them, identify the problems that exist, and hopefully come up with plans to execute against those.
Thank you.
I didn't answer yet.
Yeah, oh, sorry, no. Yeah, Ms. DiMartini, sorry.
Twice.
I need to turn my name tag down.
Yes, Ms. DiMartini.
Yes, there's great programs that the district is rolling out. As a parent who has seen their children struggling and getting identified for some of these programs when they weren't identified or tagged for them before, it's really hard. And not only as a parent, but for your children to have to tell them, that you can't stay after school or you can't go to band practice because the district scheduled your extra tutoring time for math at the same time it's your band time. So I think that our intentions are always good, or I like to think that, but I think that we have to really look at how we are implementing these programs, also the communication of it. For example, SMART program letters went out this week and the program starts next week. It doesn't really give you a lot of time as a parent to coordinate these extra services that your children need. So I just, again, think that communication is so important in making sure we can meet the needs of our kids, and also knowing what parents can and can't do.
Anyone want to rebut? Okay. A resident says, as a community, we seem to be more divided than ever on social and political issues, even at the school district level. What would you do to bring together people with different viewpoints? Do you have a specific experience in doing this? And we'll start with Mr. King.
Well, it's a national problem. It's not just limited to the school district. Frankly, I don't know how you can bring people together. Certainly, the way we're doing it, by not having inclusiveness just within the school system itself, with feedback from parents and teachers not really resonating with the senior staff, I mean, that's a big part of the problem, and they're ideological too at the central administration. It's not necessarily my ideology. I was responsible for hiring the one of those members, and I did interview the new superintendent. And I specifically said, when I interviewed him, we're looking for a strong leader, but someone that gathers input and takes recommendations from teachers and other stakeholders in the town. And that's a big part of the problem if that's not being done.
Thank you. Ms. Getty.
Would you go back over the question again?
Sure. A resident says, as a community, we seem to be more divided than ever on social and political issues, even at the school district level. What would you do to bring together people with different viewpoints? Do you have specific experience in doing this?
So one of the big things that I think is really important, first of all, I think it's important for people to come to the meetings. Second of all, I think it's important for you to speak. I think we all need and benefit from everyone's perspective and their point of view. And I hope that as a board that we're doing that as respectfully as we possibly can. And if we're not, then we need to do better. I don't know how to bring people together other than to sit and listen to them and appreciate where they're coming from. And maybe the old saying of walk a mile in someone else's shoes is appropriate here tonight. But that's really where I think we are at. And rather than getting angry and not communicating, we need to sit down and talk and have honest, valid conversations. Because there's always somewhere where we're gonna have common ground, wherever that may be.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini.
My husband's about to walk out with two of our kids, and he's now going to hear me say my quote I always say at home is that there needs to be room at the table for everybody to sit and feel heard. And I think that has really been something that, again, as a district, we can do better with. My children go to Washington School, and we've had lots of turnover with our principals there. And I asked this last round, about having some sort of, coffee hour with parents or some sort of town hall where people could be spoken to. And I was encouraged to come to board meetings. And board meetings are not the place to air grievances. We should have, other districts have coffee hours with their superintendent and administration. They have town hall forums. And I, as a social worker, especially in the community development work I've done, I have lots of experience of bringing people together who don't see eye to eye. And it's about talking to each other and about coming to a common place where everybody feels heard and respected. Doesn't mean we're not going to disagree. Doesn't mean we're always going to like each other. But we do what we need to do for the interests of the children and the teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Cipolleti.
I agree with what John said. It's a national issue. The political divisiveness, as I quite honestly said in my opening, it's gotten to a pitch that's just, it's unexplainable. I don't understand exactly where it happened or why it happened. Hitting on local politics, why do we have national parties and local politics? It makes, quite honestly, no sense to me, right? We're here to do the best job for our community. How do you solve it? My experience, and quite honestly in my corporate career, I'm usually put into situations like this, is we have a common goal. Our common goal is our kids. Our common goal is to make sure that they are educated in a safe environment and they grow emotionally. That's our goal. We should be able to put all the other BS aside, right? Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, whether you're straight, gay, or whatever, it shouldn't matter because our common goal is our kids.
Ms. Mack.
And I agree, our common goal is 100% our children. And at the district as a whole right now, it seems, is divided. And almost, it's us versus them, or, at every level, whether it's, the administration and the teachers, or the students, the parents and the administration. And that's a problem because ultimately it impacts our students. So I think it's important that as a school, we're teaching kids that it's okay to have different opinions and perspectives. And that Terry and I, we don't agree on, we're running on the same ticket, but we don't agree on, every single issue, but we are working towards the common goal for doing what's best for our students and our school community.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? A lot of agreement here too. Okay.
Just a lot of agreement,
Yes.
and I can liken it to, 30 years I spent in a courtroom advocating for kids. And I remember standing in courtrooms fighting with prosecutors or other defense counsel, trying to make things happen. And you fight like tigers when you're there because you're advocating for somebody and their life, essentially. But at the end of the day, you walk out of the courtroom and you shake hands and you say hello and you go have a cup of coffee or whatever the case may be. And the same happens, I think, at board meetings. I've served with both John and Dan, and that's exactly what happens. We don't always agree. There were times that John and I were barking at each other all the time. But at the end of the day, we walk out and go have a drink or whatever it is. So it's really listening and respecting,
Thank you.
is what it boils down to.
Great, thank you.
I support Paul on that. Her and John were barking and screaming and yelling. I was there as well.
Great. Okay. All right, next question. Do you think it's important for school board members to be parents of students now attending district schools rather than parents of graduates or parents of children who attend private schools? Mr. Cipollette.
No, I don't. Quite honestly, I have 2 children, both of which I moved out of the district, right? Both of which were in high school when I moved them. And I did that because it was the best decision for them. And it was largely around social and emotional issues. I'm a huge believer and advocate that we need to make sure we support our kids, especially in this time with social media and other things that they're exposed to, which quite honestly I wasn't exposed to at their age. The other thing of, quite honestly, not having kids in the district, it gives me a little bit more of a balanced view, right? We are obviously here to support the kids. Kids are first. Kids come number 1. We also are elected by the entire community. That includes seniors. That includes people who do not have kids in the district but yet pay taxes. So we're here to support the entire community, but the kids come first. So no, I don't believe you have to have kids in the school system.
Mr. King.
Well, I don't have any anymore, but they did go through the system, and they even went to First Press. They're probably too young to have it. But no, you don't necessarily. I'm an example, and Paula, she doesn't have kids anymore. We're doing it for different reasons. I clearly stated the reason I'm going in. And as far as whether you have kids, sometimes, like Dan, I just heard, might be more balanced. You're not right there, right in front of it. Your child comes home, or your wife says something. You can be objective. You take the whole community as a whole and you get their input and you weigh it and see where people want to be.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini.
I do believe it's important to have children in the school district of the board that you'd be serving on. As parents, we see the communication that comes home. We know what's happening in the school. We know the things that don't get presented in administrative meetings. We know the things that are kind of coming down the line. I believe that it's really important to have a pulse on what's happening, and I also feel that as parents, we are much more inclined to stand up when something is not right and really push back, because we have children who are being affected by whatever decisions are being made, or our friends' children, or our neighbors, our neighbors' grandchildren, whoever it is. There's a reason in certain, communities when you're no longer, like for example at First Pres, when your children are no longer going there, you don't have the opportunity to serve on the board there because you're not as aware of what's happening there. So I do believe that it's important. I understand what some folks are saying about different circumstances, but I think it's very important to have children in the district if you're going to serve on the board.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
I also think that it's important, if you're serving on the board, that you have that connection within the school community. I think as parents, we're in the thick of it day in and day out. I'm full-time working. I can relate and connect with the parents who are, running back and forth, picking up their kids, bringing them to soccer practice, trying to get dinner on the table, trying to get homework done. We're also getting a lot of feedback from our kids in real time. So that I think is valuable because they're sharing their school experience with us. We can connect with the teachers as well. So we're really in the thick of it, in the school community.
Thank you. There was some disagreement. Any rebuttals? Anybody want to? Oh, sorry, Ms. Getty.
Now it's my turn.
Brown
Pushing
hair.
ahead. Ms. Getty.
So I do not think it's necessary that you have kids in the district. I had a daughter, she graduated in, well, I have a daughter who graduated in 2012. She's 28 years old now. We're elected by the community, and I really think that we each in our own way bring different perspectives to that board. And my perspective may not be that of a parent at this particular point, but it may be that of a grandparent, or it may be that of a taxpayer, or it may be just a concerned citizen who loves the town that they're in, who loves our community, and wants to see the best that we can do for our kids.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Because there was some disagreement.
Yeah, I do have
Okay.
a comment.
Mr. Cipolletti.
The current board is made up of 2 members who do not have children in the system, Paul and myself, and 3 who do. Quite honestly, in private session, it's very valuable because you do bring different perspectives. Usually when you have a big decision ahead of you, at least my recommendation to my team at work or my family, you got to take the emotions out of it. Sometimes you got to step away from your email before you hit send. And by not having kids in the school system and being able to have a different perspective and different view and discussing that with people who do in the boardroom or in a private session actually brings a lot of value to the final decision.
Anyone else?
One other comment, I think, my family has said to me, and I've had people ask me, why are you running? You don't have anybody in the district anymore. Why? And it goes back, it's a really simple answer, I think. I think it's because we really care and we want to see our educational system be the best that it can be. And that translates back into the community as well, into our property values and everything else that goes with that. So I do think those different perspectives are important.
Want to say that we are also homeowners in this community as well, and understand those concerns that may come along with tax increases and spending in the budget and all of that. We obviously we have that awareness too. I've seen where my money goes or doesn't go, feel like it goes each month, but I think that we're also very educated people with a lot of life experience and work experience, and I believe, and I'm going to say it for Danielle too, because I believe in her, that we are able to go into those meetings and have those conversations and be able to be objective and keep the emotion out of things. I've served on a number of community boards and community type programs before where you have to do that.
Great, thank you. Okay. Next topic. What do you think of the district's use of technology? What changes would you make, if any, in this area? And we'll start with Ms. Mack.
Technology is a huge component of our, our child's education at this point in time. STEAM is huge. I know people call it STEM or STEAM. I do think that we're lagging a little bit. I think that it would be great if we could implement STEAM labs within our schools. I know that there is a STEAM curriculum, but it's not the same experience as having actual labs within the schools. I know we have a one-to-one Chromebook initiative, and I think that's great. I'm not sure though that our classrooms are kind of up to speed with technology that our teachers would really benefit from as far as instruction goes, like smart boards. All classrooms having smart boards. It would be great to have, I believe our technology team is really just a one-man show for the most part. I mean, we want to invest money into our technology department so that our kids can reap the benefits of keeping up to speed.
Thank you. Ms. Getty.
Thank you. So my husband and I were coaches for mock trial over the course of the past several years. And I can remember going into the high school, and this was several years ago, and we could be sitting in a classroom dealing with issues of mock trial, and one student was able to access the internet on their computer, and sitting right next, the next student could not. I've never seen or been more frustrated about that. We then went into, the board actually updated the technology piece so that there were, and I forget what they're called, ports of entry or whatever for Wi-Fi and stuff. And I think with this last appropriation that we made from the budget, we're including now the Promethean boards. There'll be, I forget how many we've ordered, but there will be updated Promethean boards and smart boards, and hopefully the Wi-Fi bandwidth or whatever it's called has been increased so that the kids have equal access when they're in that classroom to the technology that they need and the Wi-Fi accessibility that they need.
Thank you. Mr. Cipoletti.
I work in technology. When I joined the board 9 years ago, there wasn't a technology budget. Now it's a pretty large budget for our community. This year we have a one-to-one initiative. Every child has a Chromebook or a laptop. We just ordered 50 Promethean boards, as Ms. Getty just said, which are basically smart boards. The tech team is not one, it's 3, right? Technology, whether we like it or not, is what our kids need to understand, need to be comfortable with using, need to understand what implications it has, both positive and negative. So as long as I'm on the board, technology will continue to be a priority for our district.
Thank you. Mr. King.
It sounds like a corporation also, because no matter what they do with technology, there's always something that seems to go wrong with it. So it's very hard to, I don't know whether the question was related to not having enough technology or blaming someone for the technology not working all the time. But these things happen. I'm glad to hear we bought better access equipment. I don't know where we got the $1 million. It sounds like the federal government. We don't print it though. So I would have to look into that. But other than that, I totally agree. Technology is the way to go, and hopefully it works all the time. But it would be hard to just single out this district as having technology problems, because my wife and I work, and she works for the borough of Essex Fells, and theirs is worse than the banks, and the banks doesn't always work right. Sorry, I wish I had a better answer.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini.
So, I'm going to echo what, of course, many people have said about the importance of having technology and a district that is aware of the need for it, especially for the future for our children, also to keep them competitive. I just want to add, though, that there's also a huge responsibility with technology, and I hope that we can do better in teaching our children about that, about what it is to be responsible online, also about just the effect mental health-wise technology can have on us, the addiction to the apps, to always being on something, and also what that does to interpersonal relationships. Many of our children and adults too, right, not able to go out and look somebody in the eye and have a conversation and be able to not be with the device. I think that that's an important piece of technology that we also have to be sure as a district that we're being mindful of and not replacing technology with, or not replacing human interaction with too much technology.
Any other final?
I'd like to actually comment on what
Sure.
Terry just, or Ms. DiMartini just said. It's the district's responsibility, it's our parents and our community responsibility. All right, technology is a tool, that's what it is. It's how our kids use the tool, both sometimes in the schools, but as well as at home, that we as parents and as community members have to also be mindful of trying to ensure that they're using it in the right way. Because it's really just a tool, it's just how you use it.
Thank you. Any other points? Okay. Moving on now to school boards in general. Would you please describe the role of a school board member in your mind and your educational philosophy? We'll start with Ms. DiMartini.
I believe that the role of a school board is to first, obviously make sure that the school district is following the law and being responsible as well with taxpayer money and how we are doing the budget, and also being able to provide an evaluation to the superintendent. I mean, the superintendent and the staff are doing the day-to-day jobs and overseeing the district, and the role of a board is to ensure that they're doing good jobs and that they are also being held accountable to the community in which they are serving. Was there a second part to that question? I'm sorry.
Your educational philosophy.
My educational, okay. My philosophy or my education, I'm sorry.
Your educational philosophy.
My educational philosophy, okay. My educational philosophy is that we should be able to, as a district, meet all students where they are at and encourage and support them to getting them to where they want to be. So that path looks different for many students, whether it is going to college, four-year college, whether it is graduating and having a vocational certificate, whether it's going into the military. I believe that that is my philosophy, that we should support every child where they are at.
Thank you. Ms. Mack.
So as far as the responsibility of a board member, it obviously is to evaluate the superintendent and to have constructive collaborative conversations with the leader of the district in hopes to better the experience for our children, and also to approve the budget as well, and really keep a mindful watch on how we're spending our money and making sure that our money is being spent in the best interest of the students. Something that we've talked about before as far as the budget goes is, it's not a matter of just being able to crunch numbers, but really understanding what we're investing our money in, the programs that we're bringing into the district, and again, keeping in mind the best interests of all the students that we serve. As far as my educational philosophy, I truly believe that, every student is different and unique, and it's our job as a school community to provide them with what they need to be successful, productive citizens of our community.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Well, we'll start backwards because it's right off the top of my head. We'll start with educational philosophy. I think, I just want to tell a quick story. 4 of my kids went to college. Most of them are done. I have 1 in there. And 1 didn't go to college. He went to Lincoln Tech to be an electrician for electrician's trade. And every time I tell people that, they say he'll probably end up making more than the rest of your kids. So I don't know. College isn't for everyone, and parents have to be able to recognize as well as the classes. So I think that's very important. Like you said about the military turned me around, and also the vote tech stuff. I think we need that, and everything. You can't force fit someone into a college, tell them to get a clerk's job at a bank, and they never get out of a low cube, and it just doesn't work for some people. So if we have a more broadened horizon. What was the other part of the question? I'm
But
probably
your
out of
time is up.
anyway.
Get in the rebuttal, John. Get in the rebuttal.
What was the other part of the question?
Yeah, what was the other part?
The role of the school board member. Yes. Ms. Gaddy.
Thank you. So the role of the board is to set policy. We are not there to run the school. That's the superintendent's job. We're there to set policy and to be fiscally responsible. And that's a hard job sometimes. We also do the evaluations of the superintendent, and hopefully as we progress through his contract, there will be, and there has been, criticisms and constructive criticism. So hopefully things will improve. You know, I want to comment because I've just heard some things about the superintendent and administration. I would just like to say, look, we all have learning curves. And I would ask that you bear with us, be patient, and hopefully things will get better. We're working on it.
Thank you. Mr. Cipolleti.
Yeah, I think Paula said it well. I mean, there's really probably two main things for the board: oversee policy and oversee the budget. And that's it. We do not run the schools, right? We have hired professionals to run the schools. So when people sometimes come to me and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do everything, it's usually contact your teacher, go to the principal, eventually go to the superintendent if you're not getting someplace, because we do not run the schools. As far as my philosophy goes, I think John hit it well, that we don't know where he would be if he didn't go to the military. But where I want to go is, I think my philosophy is we need to prepare our kids for the next stage of life. And I think it's kind of similar to what both Terry and Danielle said. It doesn't matter whether they go to college or whether they have an interest in the trades or whether they have an interest in the military. We need to prepare them. And one of the things that's happening is a lot of communication with Caldwell College, but also you guys, you know, saw the new Votech school on Passaic Ave obviously recently. You see the beautiful building that's going up for Essex County College. There are communications that are happening with all the institutions around to try to help ensure that our kids have the opportunity, if it's not college that they want to pursue other avenues.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals?
Well, I have a rebuttal,
Okay.
because I never got a chance to
Yes.
finish the other piece.
Yes.
It is, and maybe they
Rebuttal
didn't,
to your rebuttal.
maybe they didn't, I think I'm saying the same thing. It's a macro, you're responsible at a macro level. We're looking at big things. We don't want to micromanage. We leave it up, I think everyone said that, we leave it up to the people we hire at the top. But as far as, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, cut the camera.
We'll have more opportunities. Thank you.
I'm just trying, but I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Any
I
other?
would just like to comment
Yeah.
on my philosophy, and I agree with everybody, that everything that's been said here. I also think it's important that we keep an eye on the programming that we're offering for kids at the schools too, because the more diverse and different programming that we can provide them gives them the ability earlier on to help them figure out where they want to go, what their life path may be. So if we can do something in arts, or if we can support more in music, you know, as sports are important, and I totally endorse that, but there's other aspects to it too.
Thank you.
Can I just
Anybody?
add to
Yeah,
that? Just to comment on something that Paula just said, which I believe is really important about the activities that children are exposed to, being able to help them, especially on different paths. I recently learned that many of our clubs at the high school are volunteer-led, so that the teachers are volunteering their time and talents in order to lead those. And I think that's something that we have to really look at as we talk about student passions and desires outside from sports. I mean, we all love sports, but those things are really important. Like, are we paying teachers to run these clubs that can encourage our children, that can help them get to that next stage?
Okay. Staying on the topic of school boards, do you think the school board needs to be larger than 5 members? Why or why not? We'll start with Ms. Mack.
I would be open to exploring that idea, but I think what's even more important is the qualifications that the school board member brings to the table. I think it's very important that they have a solid understanding of education, curriculum, and student need. I know we're doing a lot of data collection this past year and a half or since COVID. And I think we have to, as board members, be able to decipher that data, so we're making, good choices and decisions about program and policy for our students.
Mr. King.
Well, most districts have more than 5. 5 is a low number. I think it should go up. I think I said this 2 years ago. I think it should go to at least 7. And the reason being is you get another 2 people, and I just think a larger group, and each one would have more time to focus on a particular issue. Going back to before, you're looking at macro issues, but some of them are complex. Like there's a huge increase in the medical plans for the teachers. The residents have to pay a majority of those medical expenses. That's a problem with the budget. And we have a major bond, a 2008 bond is rolling off in 2023. It might not be the best time to go out and do something or raise more money, but you know, we have a lot of decisions have to be made on that. Whether you do something with the town or whether I think they should just let the bond roll off and put it in a capital reserve for now until it can be worked out further. But you need people to research that. You need a couple extra people, I think would be beneficial.
Thank you. Ms. Getty?
So I agree with Ms. Mack's assessment that qualifications for the board are important. I disagree that they need to have a total understanding of the educational piece of it. I think that's something you learn when you become a board member. I know I did, and I have a great appreciation for what I have learned. With regard to the number, something's sticking in the back of my mind that the 5 number, it has to do with the number of students in the district. And I don't know for sure what that is. It may be that we are limited to 5. I don't know, but I would certainly like to try and find out about that.
Fair enough. Mr. Cipollette?
I also don't know why it's 5, quite honestly. But what I do know is it's tough being 5. As people who've served on the board realize, we meet twice a week and it's basically 3 hours each night. When contracts are going on, it can go to 5, 6, 7, or 10 hours a night. And by the way, those aren't exaggerations. And that doesn't even include the committees, right? We're all on committees, and committees meet on a regular basis. So before you're all done and said and done, you put an awful lot of time in this activity. So you do it because of the passion, and it truly is a passion. So John said there's no money involved, and quite honestly, I love that, because then you're not beholden to anybody. Not that everybody in politics does that, but some potentially do. I would actually, if it's possible, like to see it go to 7, because I think that we need to spread the responsibility and the time and the efforts that, quite honestly, the 5 board members put in. Because especially if you do have children in the district and they have games and other things, it becomes taxing, right? We have board members who have kids who are just running, just getting there just before meetings start, or whatever it might be. So I think 7 is an appropriate number.
Ms. DiMartini?
Yes. Again, echoing what I know so many have already said, it would be wonderful if we could have more, if we were permitted to have more. Again, gives us more diverse views and opinions, and more folks that can come to the table and really dig into the work. I do think that background matters for being on the board, specifically at this time. A lot of what people have spoken, I know to Danielle and I, as we've been on the campaign trail, has really been about our special education program and also mental health programming for our children. And Danielle's background is in special ed and mine is in mental health. And I think that those are 2 really important qualifications to have as board members in this current world.
Thank you. Any other remarks?
I would just like to add to that. Special ed, mental health, it's all incredibly important. But as a board, we make policy for all our students, every one of them, and to make sure that we're doing what's best for them, for everybody across the board.
Okay, thank you. I think rebuttals, any? No? I think we're good. Okay. Moving on to, if you, on the subject of communications, if you're elected, how would you communicate with parents and other residents? Let's start with Mr. King.
Well, going back to the very beginning that we talked about, I think those surveys, those parent surveys are very important, especially when you're doing a major issue. I had a lot of kids and I know a lot of people in town have been here a long time. And I talked to a lot of people, and that's why I'm here, because a lot of them thought I should come back on the board. But as far as communicating, I like the idea I heard before of the coffee. I think Terry said that. I never thought of that. It sounds like a thing that we should do.
Thank you. Ms. Getty?
So, with communications, we as board members do have people that call us. We do have people that talk to us. But our obligation as a board member is to refer those individuals to the superintendent of schools, because keep in mind that they run the schools. The superintendent runs the schools. He makes the decision about the daily running of those schools. So we're there to set policy. So if I've got parents that reach out to me and say, hey, can we do something about this? I say to them, please email the superintendent, and then thank you for letting me know about it so that I can then also raise it at a board meeting if it's needed. I just wanted to go back and talk about the coffee meetings and clutches for a moment. We did have those. When Dr. Heinig was superintendent, we had started, he would have parents' nights. And frankly, they were not well attended. And I would hope that if they were started, and I do think it's a good idea, that they would be better attended, that the parents in the district would come out and actually be there to ask questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cipollette?
Sure, I'd like to comment on what Paula just said about the coffee meetings. I do believe they're great, and Dr. Heinig ran them. Quite honestly, the average of people who showed up was probably two, maybe 2.5. So if we do them again, and we have spoken to Dr. Conklin about doing them, and he's open to them, we just need to make sure more people come, because the communication avenue is there. We just need to make sure we, leverage it. As far as the board and communication, most people when they come on a board, and I've been on the board for 9 years, I've had a bunch of these conversations with new members. They think you come on the board and you can basically talk about a lot of things, take customer or parent input and react on it or act on it. You can't. It's violating the oath you take as a school board member. Everything, as Paula said, has to be directed to the administration or to the teachers. So that's one of the big things new school board members, quite honestly, have a problem with. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of learn what your role truly is. So that's just the one thing I'd say. But can communication improve? Yes, no doubt. Are we going to try to get there? Yes, we will. Has COVID impacted it? No doubt. So.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini?
I had a mentor many years ago tell me when I was running birthday parties for children who had left the homeless shelter that if one child showed up for that birthday party, it was a successful birthday party. And I think that unless you have the opportunities, you're going to have ebbs and flows. You're going to have times where one person is going to show up. You're going to have times when 20 people show up. You'll never know if you don't have the opportunities. One thing I believe is important as board members is to talk about what the district is doing, opportunities they are having out there, right? So speaking to other parents about, hey, the district is going to have a great presentation next week on, how the kids did on their Linkit scores. Please come to that, talk about other areas that the district as well is holding workshops for parents. We have these opportunities. Sometimes folks don't always know about them because things get lost in our emails a lot. We get overwhelmed. So I think part of being a board member is talking to the community about the things the board is doing that we can share, of course, and encouraging them to show up and come.
Ms. Mack?
So I think one of the important things is being consistent as board members, being consistent in our delivery of information and what we can deliver, as far as communication. I know that the rolling out of the sex ed curriculum, the rolling out of the COVID restrictions, some parents are able to go into schools, certain schools, other parents cannot go into another elementary school in the district. There was a lot of, disagreement. So I feel like the consistency piece is important. To piggyback off of what Terry said, I think it's important that as board members, we're visible in our schools to the greatest extent that we possibly can, and not, only to recognize and celebrate what the staff and the children are doing, recognize their efforts so that we can speak to that and to the community.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Okay, 2 more questions. I'm seeing this, it's not, I'm seeing this.
We're losing
It's good, well, but, these questions are
Please
great.
don't leave.
Right. Okay, moving on to the subject of mask mandates. How much time have each of you been able to devote to researching the new health standards, mask mandates, New Jersey state guidelines, et cetera, to eliminate gray areas? What would you do now if you faced a state mask mandate again as a school board member? We'll start with Ms. Mack.
So I personally don't want to send my kids with masks into school, especially my youngest, who's on the autism spectrum and is nonverbal. I mean, it killed me and upset me to have to send him every day with a mask. That being said, we're a part of a community, and I know that we had to make some difficult decisions as a community and have our kids wear masks. I think we need to rely on the experts in this case, and if it were to come up again where we had to mask up for a short period of time or even for a prolonged period of time, I think unfortunately we have to work together for the greater good of the community.
Thank you. Ms. Getty.
So I think we would need to take a look at what the experts, the Department of Health, both the state and our local Department of Health would recommend. Ms. Mack's right, and I think we have to take a look at it from the community aspect and make sure that everyone is trying to be kept safe at least.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartino.
We're all in agreement here. And in hoping that it doesn't ever have to come back to that again.
Right.
Can we please say that?
Totally in agreement on that.
I hate those masks.
So we hope we don't get there again, but again, it's about taking care of each other and following the guidelines of the experts, which is the Department of Health.
Mr. Cipollette.
I can't say it any better than it's already been said.
Okay. Mr. King.
Right, the mask, the big thing is we really hope that doesn't come back. But I don't wear the mask unless it's required. And if someone requires it from the state health department, that all the students and people have to wear the mask, I don't think a school board member or the administration should make a big issue out of it, like a big statement that we've decided to overrule that and not wear the mask. Unfortunately, if it felt like it in different circumstances as this thing ended, like what are we doing that for? But I don't, more want to comply.
Okay. Thank you. Any other final licks? Okay, last question, which I think is an interesting one to sum up tonight before we get to closing statements. Do you think children are getting a good education in this district? Please tell us why or why not, and what changes you would like to see, if any. Mr. Cipollette.
I think it's okay. I think we can do better. I think the impacts of COVID have hurt every district. But I want to see us work together from an administration perspective, a teacher perspective, set goals, and work on plans to achieve them. I want every kid in this district to fulfill their dreams, whether their dreams are to go to college, whether their dreams are to be an electrician, whether it's to go in the military or whatever. And we need to make sure we prepare them. So just like at work, I'm never satisfied with the results. I always want them to be better. So my definition of okay may be your definition of good, but I'm always going to strive for them to be improved.
Thank you. Ms. Getty.
So I'll disagree with Dan here for tonight because I do think our educational system is good. Can it be better? Absolutely. Can we do more to support our kids? Absolutely. Can we do more to support our teachers? Absolutely. But I do agree with Dan in that I would hope that we all sit down and try and work together to make that all happen. One of the things that I was particularly concerned about, and have been for a long time, even when my daughter was in school, was the math scores. It's a problem. I mean, she ended up going to college and having to take a remedial math class because her math skills weren't where they needed to be. I felt disappointment that was the case, and I'm sure it disappointed other people in the district too. I think where it becomes the bigger issue, it becomes a financial issue for many of us too, when we're sending our kids to college and they have to take a remedial class in order to catch up. So are there improvements that we can do? Absolutely. And
Thank you.
look forward to that.
Thank you. Ms. DiMartini?
Can you repeat the question again, because I want to make sure I answer it
Yes.
properly?
Yes. Are children getting a good education in this district? Please tell us why or why not, and what changes you would like to see, if any.
I do believe that we can continue to do better. I think that we're making steps in the right direction, even though some of the changes have been hard. Looking at ourselves and having honest conversations about how we can improve can be very difficult, and I think that's where some of the data comes in and can feel frustrating at times, but it's important that we look at things such as our scores and say, what are we doing right, what can we do better? And focus on how we can, again, move together positively. I do think that we live in a very competitive area, and we also have to look at the areas around us and make sure that we're preparing our students to be able to get the same opportunities as their peers in the surrounding towns. But I really think that one of the important parts of that whole conversation is making sure that our teachers are part of these conversations and and changes that we're making, that they have the opportunity to feel heard.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
I do feel that our students, like Terry had mentioned, we're on the right track to improving programs and being student focused by looking at data. I know data collection has been a common topic that when we're talking with teachers that they've been saying is a change from the past. But I do feel that it's very important to look at data because data informs our instruction. It lets us recognize strengths and weaknesses that our students may have, but also strengths and weaknesses as a district. So when we use data to inform our decision making, we're really making student-centered decisions. I agree also, we really have to support our teachers. Going back to the morale being low, that has a trickle effect. So I feel that if our teachers, are feeling great, then, that will impact, the learning that's going on in the schools.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Well, the education system around here was always good. A lot of it's got to do with the parents we have in the community. We have so many parents that just volunteer and come out and do everything. Terry volunteers for everything, and I can't even remember half of them. That's a good parent, I tell you that. But that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running. I don't like what I'm hearing, and I don't want it to decline. And other than that, I don't want to leave the area. My kids are all done with the school, and I want to keep the town kind of like the way it's always been that we had it. So.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Seems pretty good agreement there too. Okay, let's move to closing statements. They all sighed with relief. And let's start with Ms. DiMartini. 1.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I just want to share that I'm running here because I want to serve our district. I want to serve our community. I want to make things, I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to ensure that voices are heard at the table that maybe haven't been there before. I have 3 children that are in this district, and I hope that they'll be in the district for a long time. And more importantly, though, I feel that any changes and positive effect that I could have as a board member may affect children many years behind mine. May encourage somebody to move here because they've heard about what a great and strong community that we are. That's why I moved here 10 years ago with my husband. I believe that as a district, we can be stronger if we are able to work together better. And I think this includes opportunities for intentional and meaningful dialogue between all parties. That means listening to the different viewpoints, experiences, and ideas that people share, and consider all of those as we make our decisions as a district. So thank you all for listening tonight.
Thank you.
It's a long time.
Thank you. Ms. Mack?
Like Terry, I have the investment of my children, but I have the investment of everybody's children. And I'm an educator, it's my profession, and it's my job to make sure that every student is getting what they need, and working together with families. So I think my professional skill set really will serve me very well in this position, because I'm on the front lines of the communication that goes between home and school. And oftentimes I'm having conversations with parents or school leaders or teachers, and often they're tough conversations, and they're conversations that maybe parents or teachers don't want to hear, but they need to be had. So I will always have that open dialogue and honesty, within the school board. I have to be compassionate, I have to be calm, I have to be rational, and always looking to do what's in the best interest of our kids. So thank you again for hosting tonight.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Yeah, this was great. I mean, it did run long, but I could probably keep going for a while. But
Maybe
if you really want to hear me talk, I think I said most of what I wanted to say. Part of the reason I'm running is just to get a voice out there. I mean, people have to hear what I'm hearing and what I'm looking to come back to do. I mean, it's important. The school must stay stable. The other 3 terms that I was on, we had a lot of stability. And we had no, after 2010, we had no real layoffs or anything. We were able to reinstate all the programs, and the tax increases over those 10 years were much lower than the prior thing. I just worried that it's going down, so, but I appreciate that we have all these people. I hope people view it too.
Thank you. Ms. Getty?
Thank you. So I've lived in the community 30 years. It'll be 30 years this year. And it's a great place. It was a great place for my daughter to grow up, and she'd be the first one to tell you that. The experience she had through our district and its schools was wonderful. Having said all of that, there's work to be done. And I would like to be part of that conversation too, going forward. So I'd ask you to take that all into consideration when you're casting your vote. Thank you. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for having us. And most of all, thank you for listening. It really means a lot.
Thank you. Mr. Sabella?
Again, I'd also like to thank everybody for coming out today, for Terry, Danielle, John, Paul, and obviously myself for being here. We have a great community and we have high standards. I've also been in this community for, I can't believe I'm saying this, but close to 30 years. We're a close-knit community. We have a culture about us. It's called the Caldwell culture. And it's a culture that many of us who've been here for a long time don't want to change, right? But you always need to kind of tweak things, but we can't change it, right? People like living in this community. They like the Caldwells, they like the West Caldwells. We're going to help to invest wisely, as noted, by the $1 million, which we have recently invested into our technology and our security. We're going to continue to leverage the strong relationships with the governing bodies that we have related to shared services, because we both have very good communications and very good relationships with both governing bodies. And we take that money we save with shared services and we invest that back into our schools and back into our kids. We'll continue to work closely with the administration to maintain the positive paths, as evidenced by the New Jersey CUSAC report, which came out this week. It acknowledged the Caldwell, West Caldwell schools as being designated as a high-performing district within the state. And 2 sub-ratings of that is we received 100% approval from a governance perspective as well as a fiscal responsibility perspective. Both of those two goals are the main goals of the Board of Education. So again, experience matters. The experience that Paula and I have matter. Based on our leadership roles and dedication to the district, our community relations, and our proven success, and due to the challenges which quite honestly lie ahead of us. John mentioned a bond coming up. It's going to be some interesting decisions that the community is going to have to make. This is not a time for change, but it's a time for stability, and it's a time for growth. The West Caldwell community is best served to re-elect Paul and I.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Have a round of